Hey guys, tonight we slip through the silken curtains of a gilded palace, where the air hums with the scent of lotus and the faint clink of jade wine cups. You stand in the heart of the Sui dynasty, where Emperor Yangdi's laughter echoes, his golden robes shimmering under flickering torchlight. But behind his dazzling smile, a shadow stirs, a hunger for pleasure that could topple an empire. You'd last 5 minutes in this court before tripping over a whispered plot or a jeweled dagger. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Whisper in the comments where you're drifting off from and the hour on your clock. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift into tonight's shadowy tale together. You glide through the imperial city of Daxing, its towering walls glowing under a harvest moon. The year is 604, and Tui Dangda, Yangguang, has just claimed the throne. The streets buzz with merchants hawking silk and spices, their voices mingling with the distant strum of a pipa from a tea house. But your path leads to the palace, where the air grows thick with incense and ambition. You pause at the grand gates, carved with dragons that seem to watch you, their eyes glinting with secrets. Inside, the emperor's court is a dazzling maze of opulence. Crimson pillars rise to a ceiling painted with stars, and courtiers in teal and saffron robes whisper behind lacquered screens. You catch a whiff of jasmine, lovely, but it masks something darker, like the bitter tang of betrayal. Yangdi, the second emperor of Sui, lounges on a throne of ebony and gold, his fingers tracing the rim of a jade cup. His eyes, sharp as a falcon's, scan the room, but they linger too long on the swaying hips of a dancer. This is no ordinary ruler. History whispers of his obsession with pleasure, wine, women, and grand projects that drain the empire's coffers. The court buzzes with tales of his late-night feasts, where he'd order dishes laced with gold dust, as if eating wealth could make him immortal. You'd chuckle at the thought, gold for dinner? These royals turned excess into an art form. But the extravagance hides a grim truth. While Yangdi feasts, his people toil under crushing taxes to fund his whims. You slip closer, unnoticed, as a minister in a russet robe bows low, presenting a scroll. It details the progress of the Grand Canal, a massive waterway to link the empire's rivers. Yangdi's eyes light up, not for the trade it promises, but for the lavish barge he'll sail upon it. The canal, a marvel of engineering, stretches hundreds of miles, carved by the sweat of millions. Historical records note that over 1 million laborers died in its construction, their bodies buried in the muddy banks. You shiver, imagining their ghosts lingering where lotus blooms now float. Yangdi, though, seems oblivious, his laughter ringing as he calls for more wine. Did he know the cost in lives? Or did he simply not care? That's the enigma historians still debate. How much of his reign was ambition, and how much was blind indulgence? You wander deeper into the palace, past a courtyard where peonies glow under lantern light. A concubine, her silk sleeves trailing like mist, brushes past you, her perfume heavy with musk. She glances back, her eyes holding a secret. Whispers among the court say Yangdi's harem numbers in the thousands, each woman vying for his favor. One tale, passed down through the ages, claims he built a mirror hall lined with polished bronze to watch his consorts from every angle. You stifle a laugh. Imagine the maintenance bill for that vanity project. Yet, these women are more than ornaments. They're players in a dangerous game. One wrong word, one misplaced glance, and a rival could vanish into the palace's shadowy corners. The night deepens, and you find yourself in a garden where a fountain bubbles softly. The air carries the faint strum of a guzheng, its notes weaving a lullaby-like spell. But beneath the music, you hear murmurs, courtiers plotting in the dark. Yangdi's obsession with pleasure has left the throne vulnerable. His brother, Yang was once heir, but Yangdi schemed to take his place, spreading rumors of disloyalty. Some say he even poisoned his father, Emperor I, to seize power. Historians can't agree. Was it murder or natural death? The records are murky, like the palace's lotus ponds at midnight. You pause, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. The jasmine scent grows stronger, almost cloying, as if masking a plot as deadly as the emperor's desires. You turn a corner and find a banquet hall, its tables laden with delicacies, lotus seed cakes, roasted peacock, and wine in cups carved from rhino horn. Yangdi reclines, his golden robe catching the light, surrounded by laughing nobles. But you notice a guard, his hand lingering near his sword, his gaze fixed on the emperor. The court is a glittering cage, and every smile hides a dagger. You'd think these nobles would tire of scheming, but it's practically their cardio. The emperor raises his cup, toasting to eternal glory, but you sense a tremor in the air, a whisper of rebellion growing beyond the palace walls. The canal, the feasts, the harem, all fuel resentment among the people, who starve while their ruler drowns in luxury. As you drift through the hall, the candlelight flickers, casting shadows that dance like specters. You recall the canal, its waters now flowing, but at what cost? A quirky detail sticks with you. Yangdi insisted his barge be pulled by teams of maidens in silk, their delicate hands blistered by ropes. It's almost comical, until you think of the thousands who died for his vision. The historical nugget here is the canal itself, a feat that outlived the sway but birthed untold suffering. You wonder, did Yangdi see himself as a visionary, or was he lost in his own gilded dream? The question lingers as the Guzhing's notes fade, pulling you deeper into the night's embrace. You drift deeper into the labyrinth of Tui Dangdi's palace, where the air hums with secrets and the faint scent of sandalwood curls from bronze censers. The candlelit corridors stretch endlessly, their walls adorned with silk tapestries depicting mythical beasts, dragons and phoenixes that seem to writhe in the flickering light. You're still in Daxing, the year 607 now, and the emperor's reign grows ever more extravagant. The whisper of a concubine's silken laugh draws you to a secluded chamber, its door ajar, revealing a scene that could unravel the throne itself. You pause, heart quickening, as you sense the weight of a plot thickening like the incense in the air. The chamber is a jewel box of opulence, its floors strewn with rose petals, their fragrance mingling with the tang of spiced wine. A concubine, Lady Xiao, reclines on a lacquered couch, her indigo robe shimmering like a twilight sky. Her eyes, sharp as jade, meet those of a young courtier, his russet tunic marked with the dust of a long ride. They speak in hushed tones, their words barely audible over the soft plucking of a pipa in the distance. You catch fragments, something about a letter, a rival, a promise of power. Lady Xiao was once Yangdi's favorite, her beauty said to rival the moon, but favor is fleeting in this court. You'd think these nobles would tire of scheming. Plotting must be their favorite pastime. Yet, her smile hides a dagger's edge, and you wonder if she's weaving a trap for the emperor or for herself. You glide closer, unnoticed, as the courtier slips a scroll into his sleeve. The palace is alive with such whispers, each one a thread in a tapestry of betrayal. Historical records note that Yangdi's court was a hotbed of intrigue, with concubines and officials vying for influence. Lady Xiao, a real figure from the Sui annals, was rumored to have swayed Yangdi's decisions, her charm a weapon as potent as any sword. But her influence bred enemies, and some say she plotted against rivals to secure her place. Historians debate, was she a mastermind or a pawn in a larger game? The answer lies buried in the palace's shadows, like a pearl lost in a lotus pond. You wander out to a moonlit terrace, where the air carries the cool bite of autumn and the distant murmur of the city beyond. Below, the Grand Canal sparkles, its waters reflecting torchlight like a ribbon of stars. Yangdi's pride, this canal was meant to bind the empire, but it's bleeding the land dry. You recall the laborers, millions, some say, whose bones lie beneath its banks. A quirky detail catches your fancy. Yangdi once ordered the canal lined with willow trees, each planted by a maiden in his service. It's almost poetic, until you realize those maidens worked until their hands bled, all for his fleeting pleasure. You chuckle softly. Imagine the emperor inspecting trees while his empire groaned. The terrace overlooks a garden where lanterns sway, casting golden pools on the stone paths. You spot Yangdi himself, strolling with a retinue of giggling consorts, his golden robe catching the light. He pauses to admire a peony, its petals heavy with dew, but his gaze drifts to a young woman in saffron silk. Her laugh is too loud, her eyes too bold, and you sense the court's eyes on her, judging, plotting. Yangdi's harem, a sprawling network of women, is both his joy and his weakness. Each consort, adorned in jewels worth a village's harvest, competes for his heart or his power. You'd think they'd share the emperor, but sharing's not exactly a palace virtue. A breeze carries the scent of jasmine, cloying now, as if masking a darker truth. You follow Yangdi's entourage back inside, where a banquet is unfolding. Tables groan under platters of lotus cakes, roasted boar, and wine in jade cups. The emperor claps, calling for dancers, their silk veils swirling like mist. But you notice a minister, his face half hidden in shadow, watching from a corner. His hand rests on a silk pouch, and you wonder, poison, a letter, or something worse. The court's intrigues are as tangled as the tapestries, and Yangdi's blindness to them is staggering. He laughs, toasting to his eternal reign, but you feel a chill. Those toasts sound hollow when rebellion stirs beyond the walls. You slip into a side hall, where a scholar in teal robes pores over a bamboo scroll. He mutters about omens, a comet seen last month, a warning of divine displeasure. The Sui Dynasty's chronicles record such signs, linking them to Yangdi's excesses. One oddity stands out. Yangdi once commissioned a mirror made of polished jade, believing it could show him his enemies' faces. You stifle a laugh. Imagine the emperor staring at his own reflection, mistaking it for a foe. Yet, the scholar's fear is real. He whispers of a prophecy. A ruler drowned in his own desires will fall to a traitor's hand. Is it Lady Zhao's plot or another's? The riddle gnaws at you, unanswered, as the pipa's notes fade. As you drift through the palace, the air grows heavier, the shadows longer. You pass a bronze censer, its smoke curling like a dragon's breath, and catch a glimpse of Lady Zhao again. She's alone now, her fingers tracing a jade hairpin. Her eyes are distant, as if she sees the empire's end. You recall the historical nugget. Yangdi's obsession with his harem weakened his grip on the court, letting figures like Lady Zhao wield power in the shadows. Her schemes, though, may have sown the seeds of her own downfall. You wonder if she knew the cost of her ambition, or if she, like Yangdi, was lost in the palace's gilded dream. The jasmine scent lingers, pulling you deeper into the night's secrets. You glide through the opulent haze of Tui Dangdi's palace, where the air shimmers with the warmth of 1,000 candles and the faint clink of jade wine cups. It's 6:10 now, and the empire creaks under the weight of its emperor's desires. You find yourself in a grand banquet hall, its ceiling painted with swirling clouds, as if the heavens themselves bow to Yangdi's whims. The scent of roasted peacock and lotus cakes fills the room, but beneath it, a sour note lingers, perhaps the bitterness of a starving land. The golden feasts unfold before you, dazzling yet hollow, and you sense the empire's heartbeat faltering as Yangdi's excesses blind him to the cries beyond the walls. The hall buzzes with laughter, but it's a brittle sound, like glass about to shatter. Yangdi reclines on a throne-like chair, his golden robe catching the candlelight, a goblet of spiced wine in hand. Around him, nobles in indigo and saffron silks raise their cups, their smiles tight, their eyes darting. You'd think they'd relax at a feast this lavish, but in this court, every toast feels like a gamble. Tables groan under dishes dusted with gold leaf, a quirky habit of Yangdi's, as if eating wealth could stave off fate. Historical records note his banquets cost fortunes, with one feast reportedly feeding thousands while villages starved. You marvel at the irony, a ruler dining on gold while his people scrape for rice. You drift closer, catching the glint of a jade pendant on a noblewoman's neck. She's Lady Mei, a new favorite, her laughter bright but calculated. The court whispers that Yangdi's obsession with her has sparked jealousy among the harem, especially from Lady Zhao, whose influence wanes. You recall that silken laugh from the shadowed chamber. Now it's Lady Mei who holds the emperor's gaze. The harem, a glittering web of ambition, is a battlefield of whispers and wiles. You chuckle softly. Navigating this court must feel like herding cats with egos the size of the Great Wall. Yet, every smile hides a motive, and Lady Mei's rise could spell danger for more than just her rivals. Beyond the hall, you hear the distant rumble of discontent. The Grand Canal, Yangdi's pride, has drained the empire's wealth, and his endless feasts only deepen the wound. You slip through a curtained archway to a balcony overlooking Daxing's rooftops. The city sparkles under a crescent moon, but the air carries the faint wail of a street beggar. The contrast is stark. Inside, nobles sip wine from rhino horn cups. Outside, farmers sell their children to survive. A historical nugget surfaces. Yangdi once ordered a banquet served on a floating platform, towed by silk-clad maidens along the canal. You laugh at the absurdity. Imagine the logistics of that royal picnic. But the cost in lives and labor hangs heavy, like the smoke curling from a nearby censer. You turn back to the feast, where dancers in teal veils swirl to the strum of a guzheng. Their movements are hypnotic, lulling you into the scene, but you notice a minister lingering near a pillar, his russet robe blending with the shadows. His hand clutches a scroll, and his eyes flicker toward Yangdi. Is it a petition or a plot? The court's intrigues are as thick as the incense, and Yangdi seems oblivious, lost in the dancer's grace. Scholars still ponder a riddle. Did Yangdi's blindness to rebellion stem from arrogance or delusion? Some say he believed his wealth made him untouchable. Others argue he saw the cracks but chose to drown them in wine. The truth, like the emperor himself, slips through the shadows. You wander to a side table, where a scholar in a teal robe whispers to a guard. They speak of uprisings in the north, peasants driven to rebellion by taxes and forced labor. The scholar mentions a name, Li Mi, a noble-turned-rebel who's gathering followers. Yangdi's feasts, it seems, are fueling more than just envy. They're igniting a fire that could consume the throne. You'd think a ruler would notice his empire crumbling, but Yangdi's too busy commissioning golden chopsticks. The guard's face tightens, and you wonder if he's loyal or biding his time. In this palace, loyalty is as rare as a quiet night. The banquet hall grows warmer, the air heavy with wine and perfume. You catch a whiff of jasmine, cloying now, as if masking the rot beneath the splendor. Lady May rises, offering Yangdi a cup, her smile radiant but sharp. You recall the whispers about Lady Zhao's schemes. Could Lady May be countering with her own? The emperor drinks deeply, his laughter booming, but you notice a tremor in his hand. Is it the wine, or does he sense the noose tightening? The historical record hints at poison plots in the Sui court, though none are confirmed. The enigma lingers. Was Yangdi's downfall orchestrated by those closest to him, or did his own excesses write his fate? As you drift through the hall, the guzheng's notes slow, weaving a dreamlike spell. The candlelight flickers, casting shadows that dance like specters of the empire's end. You pause by a lacquered screen, its dragon carvings seeming to watch you. The feast continues, but the air feels charged, as if the palace itself holds its breath. Yangdi raises another toast, his voice slurring slightly, and you wonder how long this golden dream can last. The starving land beyond the walls whispers of rebellion, and the emperor's glittering world is a house of cards, trembling in the wind. You drift along the shimmering waters of the Grand Canal, the air heavy with the scent of lotus and the faint creak of oars cutting through the night. It's 6:12, and Tui Dangda, Yang Guang, sails on his lavish barge, a floating palace draped in crimson silk and gilded with gold. The moon hangs low, casting a silver glow over the canal's willow-lined banks, where lanterns sway like fireflies. You stand at the barge's edge, the soft lapping of water blending with the distant wail of a flute, its notes weaving a dreamlike spell. But beneath the opulence, a current of rebellion stirs, and this river journey, meant for pleasure, glides toward a destiny laced with betrayal. The barge is a marvel, its deck adorned with jade carvings and cushioned with embroidered silk. Yangdi lounges beneath a canopy, his golden robe shimmering, surrounded by consorts in teal and saffron gowns. Their laughter rings out, but you notice their eyes, wary, calculating, like cats watching a storm approach. You'd think a pleasure cruise would loosen them up, but in this court, even relaxation feels like a chess move. A quirky detail catches your ear. Yangdi insists the barge be pulled by maidens, their delicate hands wrapped in silk to hide the blisters. It's almost comical, until you imagine their exhaustion, all for the emperor's whim. Historical records note these journeys cost millions in silver, draining the treasury while famine gripped the land. You glide closer, catching the scent of spiced wine and roasted pheasant from a floating banquet. Servants scurry, balancing trays of gold-dusted dumplings. Yangdi's obsession with edible wealth never ceases to amuse. You chuckle softly. These royals spent gold like it grew on lotus pads. But the extravagance masks a grim truth. The canal, meant to unify the empire, has become a symbol of excess. Peasants, taxed to starvation, whisper of rebellion, and names like Li Mi and Wang Shichong echo in the shadows. You overhear a guard muttering about uprisings in the north, his voice low, his hand gripping a spear. The emperor, though, seems oblivious, toasting to his eternal reign as the flute's notes soar. You slip below deck, where the air grows thick with incense and secrets. A concubine, Lady May, stands by a lacquered screen, her fingers tracing a jade hairpin. Her saffron robe glows in the candlelight, but her eyes are sharp, fixed on a scroll held by a nervous scholar. You recall Lady Zhao's fading influence. Has Lady May seized her chance to weave a new plot? The court's intrigues are a tangled web, and Yangdi's blindness to them is staggering. Historical accounts hint at a scandal. Yangdi's reliance on favorites like Lady May alienated his generals, sowing discord. Scholars debate a riddle. Did Yangdi's lust for pleasure blind him to betrayal, or did he see the cracks and choose to sail past them? You wander to the barge's stern, where the canal stretches into darkness. The night air carries a chill, and you hear the faint cries of laborers along the banks, their silhouettes hunched under the weight of their toil. The canal, a marvel of engineering, was built on their suffering. Millions died, their names lost to history. You'd think Yangdi would notice the cost, but he's too busy commissioning silk sails for his next voyage. The flute's melody slows, its notes heavy with foreboding, and you sense the empire's pulse weakening. Beyond the barge, the land stirs with unrest, and the emperor's journey is a gilded escape from a reality he cannot outrun. You return to the deck, where Yangdi claps for dancers, their veils swirling like mist. A minister in russet robes lingers near the railing, his gaze distant, as if seeing the rebellion cresting like a wave. You catch a whiff of jasmine, cloying now, as if masking a darker truth. The minister's hand rests on a silk pouch. Another plot, perhaps? The historical nugget here is the rebellion of Li Mi, a former noble who turned against Yangdi, rallying thousands with promises of justice. His uprising, fueled by the emperor's excesses, marked a turning point. You wonder, did Yangdi sense the tide turning, or was he too drunk on wine and flattery to care? The barge glides on, its lanterns casting golden ripples on the water. You notice a guard, his face half hidden in shadow, watching Yangdi with an unreadable expression. Is he loyal, or does he dream of the throne's end? The court's loyalty frays like the silk ropes pulling the barge, and you feel the weight of an empire teetering. The flute's notes fade, replaced by the distant rumble of discontent. Farmers, soldiers, even nobles turning against their ruler. You'd think Yangdi would hear it, but he's lost in the dancer's grace, his laughter echoing over the water. The canal, once his pride, now carries him toward a reckoning. As you drift along the barge, the moon dips lower, its light dimming. The air grows heavier, the jasmine scent mingling with the tang of river mud. You recall the prophecy whispered in the palace. A ruler drowned in desire will fall to a traitor's hand. Is it Lady May's scheme, the minister's scroll, or the rebellion beyond the banks? The enigma lingers, pulling you deeper into the night's shadows, where the empire's fate hangs like a thread ready to snap. You stand in the heart of Yangdi's burning palace, the air thick with the acrid sting of smoke and the fading scent of jasmine, now overwhelmed by the crackle of flames. It's 6:18, and the Sui dynasty teeters on its final breath. The grand halls of Daxing, once alive with laughter and silk, are a chaos of shouts and clashing steel. You glide through the wreckage, past shattered jade vases and scorched tapestries, as shadows dance across the walls like specters of a fallen empire. Tui Dangda, Yang Guang, flees through a corridor, his golden robe torn, his eyes wild with fear. The crown he wore so proudly is slipping, and treachery's grip tightens around his throat. The palace is a maze of panic, courtiers scattering like leaves in a storm. You hear the distant roar of rebels, Li Mi's forces, joined by others, storming the gates. The emperor's excesses, his golden feasts and lavish barge, have fueled this fire. You'd think he'd have seen it coming, but Yangdi was too busy polishing his ego to notice the empire crumbling. You slip into a chamber where he pauses, gasping, clutching a jade pendant as if it could save him. The pendant, a gift from Lady May, glints in the firelight, but her absence is telling. Has she betrayed him, or did she flee to save herself? The court's loyalty, fragile as silk, has unraveled completely. You drift closer, the heat of the flames prickling your senses. Yangdi's face, once radiant with confidence, is gaunt, his eyes darting to the door where footsteps echo. A historical nugget surfaces. Yangdi's downfall was sealed by Yuan Huaji, a trusted general who turned traitor. Chronicles record that Yuan, fed up with the emperor's debauchery, led a coup in 618, ending the Sui dynasty. You chuckle softly. Imagine trusting a general who's had enough of your gold-dusted dumplings. But the betrayal runs deeper. Whispers say Yuan was swayed by promises from within the harem, perhaps even Lady May. The riddle persists. Was Yangdi's end orchestrated by one schemer, or did his own desires weave the noose? The corridor narrows, and you follow Yangdi to a small hall, its walls adorned with fading dragons. He collapses onto a lacquered chair, his breath ragged, as a group of guards bursts in. Their armor clanks, their faces grim, and you notice Yuan Huaji among them, his russet cloak stained with soot. Yangdi raises a hand, pleading, but his words are drowned by the crackle of flames. You'd think a ruler so fond of drama would have scripted a better exit. The guards close in, and though the chronicles spare the grisly details, they hint at a silken cord tightened in the dark. You sense the moment's weight, the empire's end marked not by a grand battle, but by a quiet, treacherous act. You slip outside, where the palace burns against a starless sky. The Grand Canal, Yangdi's pride, lies silent beyond the walls, its waters reflecting the fire's glow. The air carries the tang of ash and the faint wail of a city in chaos. You recall the laborers who died for that canal, their ghosts perhaps watching now. A quirky detail lingers. Yangdi once ordered a palace room filled with mirrors to admire his consorts, but in his final moments, no mirror could hide his fate. The historical record notes the Sui's collapse sparked the rise of the Tang dynasty, a silver lining to this tragedy. But for Yangdi, there's no redemption, only the flames and the traitor's cord. You wander through the burning courtyard, where peonies wilt in the heat, their petals curling like defeated dreams. The rebellion's roar grows louder, and you glimpse rebels looting the palace, their torches blazing. Yangdi's vision of eternal glory lies in ashes, his feasts and barges forgotten by all but the historians. You wonder, did he regret his excesses, or did he cling to his gilded dream until the end? The enigma of his heart, arrogance or delusion, remains unanswered, like a scroll lost in the fire. The jasmine scent is gone, replaced by smoke, and you feel the palace's pulse fade, its secrets consumed by the night. As the flames rise higher, you drift away from the chaos, the air cooling as you move toward a quiet void. The stars emerge, soft and distant, and the world grows still. You imagine the canal's waters flowing on, indifferent to the empire's fall. The shouts and clashing steel fade, replaced by a gentle hum, like a fan spinning in a darkened room. Your thoughts soften, the weight of Yangdi's tragedy slipping away. Let the fire burn out, let the shadows rest. You're safe now, carried by a breeze that whispers of peace, of dreams untroubled by crowns or treachery. Close your eyes, let the night cradle you, and drift into a slumber as calm as a lotus pond under moonlight. Word count, 1552. Wind down. The palace is gone now, its flames a distant memory, and you float above the silent waters of the Grand Canal, where willows sway in a gentle breeze. The stars above twinkle softly, their light a balm after the chaos of Yangdi's fall. You feel the night's embrace, cool and soothing, as the scent of ash fades, replaced by the faint perfume of lotus blooms. The Empire's story, with its glittering feasts and whispered plots, dissolves like mist, leaving only the hum of a quiet world. You're no longer bound by the weight of crowns or the sting of betrayal. The waters lap softly, a lullaby woven into the night, carrying you further from the burning halls. Your breath slows, your heart steadies, and the stars seem to whisper a blessing. Rest now, let the shadows fade. The world is still, the night is kind, and sleep waits to claim you with a tender touch.